Thank you. There are thousands of immigrants around this country who cannot share their story here tonight because they are in jail. They are in detention, and many of them are in detention right here in South Georgia. So I want to share a couple of stories and then talk to you a little bit about what immigration detention is, what the realities are here in Georgia, and how you might be able to help those who are detained and their loved ones. One of my friends in detention in Irwin County, that's in Ocilla, it's about 2.5 hours from here. He's there tonight. He's an asylum seeker from one of the most violent countries in Africa. He's a pastor, an evangelist, and he had death threats from Boko Haram. You may hear about them, a terrorist organization in Africa. Several of his family members were murdered, so he fled the country. He claimed asylum at the airport, which he has a legal right to do. He was immediately placed in detention in Irwin County. He has been there for 3 years, fighting his case. I met last summer a woman from Trinidad. She had been detained around 5 months. She has 4 children, ages 7 through 13, and they were staying with her family in the Boston area. She came to the United States at 2 years old with her family. She finished high school. She worked as a nurse assistant, as a hairstylist, and she volunteered at an animal shelter in Florida. She dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. She told me about how poor the food quality was in the detention center. She had gained 60 pounds in 5 months. And she suffered extreme swelling. And for a week, the week prior, when I visited her that week, it was the middle of the summer, and her unit had not had air conditioning in a week. She's been deported. A man from Mexico I just met the other week. He's a restaurant worker at a very popular restaurant in a major metropolitan area in Atlanta. I'm trying to keep things general to protect people's identity and their legal case. He's been there working for 14 years and is beloved by his restaurant family and has family here. No criminal background. He was detained with improper taillight that was out. He was not pulled over just by the police. He was being followed by ICE. This was in the recent raids in some of the couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so, in our cities in Georgia. So he was pulled over, taken in, arrested, driving without a license, and he is now starting to fight his case in immigration court. He lost 10 pounds in 3 weeks. The food was so bad. He had the opposite effect of some others. Yes, I do. 19-year-old single mother from Central America. She got to Mexico on bus, and then she crossed the border by foot. She's a single mother of a 5-year-old child she left in Central America with her family. She came here with the dream of going to high school and of graduating and bringing her child here to grow up in a place that wasn't marred by gang violence, where they didn't fear their lives every day. She spent her time in detention assisting a fellow detainee who had leukemia, a young woman with leukemia who had nosebleeds, who vomited blood and had a skin condition where she would have blisters under her skin. And she couldn't tolerate the hot water. The only water they had to shower with is scalding hot. They don't have a choice. So the women would get a Rubbermaid storage tub and fill it with water and fill it with ice so that she could bathe. And they fed her oatmeal and ramen noodles from the commissary that they could save up their money for. She couldn't get the supplement that she needed. She was supposed to be on a fresh fruit diet. They get about 1 apple a month. They get chicken once a week. I've heard that many times. It's chicken day. We get chicken once a week. The rest of the time, it's processed junk. And this woman with leukemia did not want to be isolated. If she admitted her illness, she would be isolated, basically in solitary confinement. And she wanted to be with the other women who were caring for her. These are all individuals, beautiful people that I have met personally at the Irwin County Detention Center. Immigration detention is the practice of incarcerating immigrants while they await determination of their immigration status or they await deportation. In the United States, over 200,000 immigrants a year are booked into over 200 immigration jails across the country. They include undocumented and documented persons. Many have been in the United States for years, and some are facing exile, some are survivors of torture, some are asylum seekers. and others are part of vulnerable groups, women, children, individuals who are seriously ill, like the woman I just talked about. These detention centers, most of them are for-profit facilities. These are corporate-owned, for-profit facilities. They are run by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You may be hearing that acronym a lot these days. That functions under the Department of Homeland Security. So that's the agency that runs the detention system. They subcontract the majority of their detention space to county jails and private prisons. The detention budget in 2016 was $2.3 billion of our tax money supporting this. Then that goes to private corporations to run them. The system operates under a congressionally mandated quota of 34,000 detention beds at any given time. So this is the only policy, it's known as the detention bed quota, and it's unprecedented. No other law enforcement agency operates under a quota system of making sure you have heads on the beds in these facilities every night in the United States so that these corporations can make enough money. In detention, immigrants are subjected to harsh conditions of confinement, denied access or have very limited access to adequate medical care, legal counsel, family contact, religious accommodations, mental health services. Since 2003, a reported 167 people have died in immigration custody. Some of the corporations that run these facilities across our country, CCA and the GEO Group, have announced increasing profits. GEO reported first quarter last year, $510 million in revenue. And it is a boom for them right now. In Georgia, we have 3 facilities. There's one in Atlanta, in downtown. There's Stewart Detention Center in Lumpkin, which is near Columbus, and Irwin County Detention Center, which I live near, is in Osceola, which is about 30 minutes from Tifton. Tifton is right on I-75, about 3.5 hours and 15 minutes from here in Savannah. It's about 2 hours, 40 minutes from y'all here. Irwin County is. Stewart houses about 2,000. Kent has a capacity for around 2,000. Is men only, and Irwin County Detention Center is men and women with a total of about 700 detainees. These facilities are isolated. They're in very poor rural counties who are looking for some revenue and jobs. So they develop old, deteriorating county facilities often, or federal prisons and sections of those so that they can have some new income for their area, new jobs. People there are then also isolated from legal services, from their families. It's very hard for families to visit. If they work a 9-hour shift, they may receive $1 to $4 per shift, and then they're charged $1 a minute for a phone call home. That's not an international call either. The deportation rate in Georgia is one of the worst in the country. 87% from Stewart will be deported, and 75% from Irwin will get deported. Georgia has one of the harshest immigration court systems in the country. Let me keep going. I know, it's just kind of a downer, but we need to know. I'm missing something here, hold on. The conditions, there was a human rights delegation, Southern Poverty Law Center, and other attorneys and human rights groups sent a delegation to immigration detention centers across the South last year. I met with some of them as well. And they came out with a report called Shadow Prisons, and I highly recommend you check that out. And around the conditions, one of the quotes from the report says, "Our investigation confirmed serious concerns with the quality and quantity of food, water, clothing, hygiene supplies, and cleaning materials provided to detainees at all facilities. Detainees at all facilities reported becoming ill from spoiled food. Several detainees reported receiving expired food, food with mold on it, and in some cases, food with worms and insects. Detainees at Stewart Detention Center also reported concerns with the water at the facility, which is discolored and has led to illness after drinking it." I want to share with you a definition from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum of a concentration camp. They define a concentration camp as a camp in which people are detained or confined, usually under harsh conditions and without regard to legal norms of arrest and imprisonment that are acceptable in a constitutional democracy. Just want you to let that sink in for a minute. This is happening right under our noses in Southeast Georgia. We have these 3 centers. Another one is about to open in Folkston, which is near Jacksonville on the Florida-Georgia line. These are relatively close. They don't seem that close to Savannah. It's not right here. But people who are detained from Savannah, some of them are going to end up in these facilities. So I know we're expanding our definition of local here. Stewart Detention Center has support from a lot of human rights organizations and attorneys in Atlanta. Irwin County Detention Center right now has no human rights support. There's a small group of us in the early stages of developing some programs and ministry to support detainees and their families. So some things that we are doing and that you could also do with us if you are interested, despite the distance, is to write or to visit detainees. I can help you with that. I can give you names and ID numbers and tell you how to write to people or how to make a visit. Visits are 1-hour non-contact visits, and this is in a these people are incarcerated. They're not supposed to be treated as criminals, but they are. This is through the thick glass in the visitation booth for 1 hour. They're allowed 1 visit per week, if they can even get that. There are 700 people there, but only 36 appointments possible in a given week at that facility for detainees. So very few people get a visit. The first man I talked about, 3 years he'd been there. I was his first visitor. Many do not have any family or friends. You get an hour with the old black telephone earpiece to talk to somebody through the glass, if you've ever experienced that kind of visit. But it is amazing how you can connect with another human being despite the barriers and despite the setting that you're in. Writing a letter or a card, it seems like nothing, but it gives them tremendous hope and encouragement and just lets them know that they are not alone. Depression, of course, is very common, and isolation, and a card can make somebody's week. Offering sanctuary to those to prevent people from getting detained. Churches, individuals can provide sanctuary, can provide accompaniment for those going to, say, a parole or an ICE appointment that's required. Many are getting detained and arrested at those appointments that they've gone to for years, and now they show up and they're arrested. For detainees at Stewart, there's a wonderful hospitality house called El Refugio, right outside of about a mile from that facility, that provides housing and lodging for families coming to visit. Many are traveling from North Carolina, South Carolina, long distances, and there are no hotels in these small towns in rural Georgia. So they provide housing and food and support also for pro bono attorneys. And speaking of attorneys, if you are an attorney or you know an attorney, Southern Poverty Law Center has started a new pro bono attorney network to support detainees spending a week at Stewart. This is starting at Stewart, and hopefully we'll have enough involvement that it can spread to Irwin and some of the other detention centers across the South. You can also help just get involved in developing this program in Southeast Georgia, and we really need to start thinking about how we're going to provide services and support for detainees in Folkston. I have, my card is at the table, and I have some cards here. If you'd like to connect with me, if you're interested in finding out how you can support folks who are here. I didn't know about this until about 1.5 years ago. I'm 30 miles from one of these centers. I had no idea that this was happening in South Georgia. I thought detention centers were in Texas or somewhere on the border, and no clue. And that may be true for you as well. And this is a human rights crisis that's right under our noses, but it's within our grasp to support folks, help folks who are suffering in this way, and to draw attention to this issue, to talk to our legislators, to talk to our community leaders, talk in our churches, wherever we are, about this issue and end it. Thank you.